How do you handle suicidal thoughts? Just
Go ahead. Because I haven't really had anybody that's told me they wanted to.
I've had a lot of people that have talked about, and been in suicide and thoughts and different things like that. Or they had a root of it and they aren't really gone through it, but yet there still is a root back there, okay? First off, personally, I think that suicide is connected to sexual trauma. All right. And once you take care of the sexual trauma, and then you realize that suicide is a protector, all right? Just like death can be a protector, okay? I will wholeheart death, I'll wholeheart suicide, and when God's love and His presence comes into those places, then it becomes what it was created to be instead of what it is. And so it's no longer suicide, and it's no longer death. And so as you're going through and you find out, we find out the trauma. Let's say that I'm just going to do suicide in itself. I'll say, okay, what's the active root to suicide? What happened? When did it first show up? And so if I can get through it that way and just wholeheart it that way, then I'll do it. But then when I go through the list of protectors, I include suicide and death because they are protectors, okay? They aren't on the normal list, but I'll include them there. Or if anytime anybody has some death stuff going on or suicide stuff going on, even if it was the past, even if it's not around anymore, I'll always include that and make sure that that's dealt with. If all of a sudden it turns out that I'm not getting the memory or what happened or where it first showed up, then I'll go back to that process of those thoughts of death or thoughts of suicide in that core place that we just talked about. And I'll just deal with the core place, and I'll have Father God come to the core place when those first thoughts first showed up. And then I'll do anger, confusion, and pain, and then I'll branch out, and eventually that gives me those memories where they came from.
so that kind of, when you say death, that kind of includes cutting, bulimia, anorexia.
Absolutely.
all
And
that stuff.
I'll do cutting separately too, and cutting's a protector. All right, that's a protector. That's just like suicide, death. It's a protector. And then there's what do you call them? Self-defiling type behavior. Okay. And I'm not saying the right term, but anyhow, what happens is any behavior like that is a protector. It's a self-protection thing, and it doesn't seem like it would be, but it is. All right, just like it's just dysfunctional. It's like the others. It's dysfunctional, and you can do them if they come up specifically. I like to do them specifically. Whatever it happens to be. If there's a number of them, then I might do them together. You know what I mean? But I always they're always treated just like anger, anxiety, or fear, that type of thing. Amen.
Because he moved. Just want to make sure he was still.
Yeah.
You moved.
Oh, no,
I
okay.
must have cooties or something.
Yeah.
Like he keeps getting farther and farther away from me. I'm going to have to wholeheart myself.
I've got this new type of deodorant.
I have perfume on. I don't know.
No, I'm using that new type of deodorant to the fish sandwich.
Oh, I love it. I was going to comment how lovely that is. So, okay. Any other questions you guys thought of throughout all this before he talks about the sexual stuff, trauma stuff?
Yeah. What was it? Maybe I can't find it until I feel like I'm just spacey.
Yeah. Hey, do we
should
need
do
to wholeheart the
We need to
numbness? I'm teasing.
That
no.
have voice place.
Yeah, we just traumatized Ruth. Go ahead.
I just wanted to
Jane.
say this again, that you said that you think that all suicidal thoughts are connected with sexual
Um,
trauma.
I mean, I can't prove that, but I'm just going to tell you that there's that self-defiling, people cutting themselves, suicide, even things like homosexuality, just all those deep, just totally twisted things that there's sexual trauma in all of those. I would stake. There just is. There absolutely is. The reason that maybe the world doesn't think it is because they don't know how to find those places. You know, they don't. The whole clinical and psychology. I mean, they just, yeah. They
Yeah.
just, but it is. It just is. And so when you see people going through stuff and what they go through, there's so much sexual trauma and violations out there. It's through the roof. Okay. Almost everybody has sexual violations, okay, all right? People don't think that, you know, because they didn't get raped, you know, they're thinking they haven't been violated, but when they were 2 years old, there was a 4-year-old kid that came and touched them inappropriately or in the wrong place and violated them, or they were in the bathtub, and or you know, Uncle Joe had a pornography film on, you know, and they were 5 years old, and they were in the room. That's a violation. It's a visual violation, and it creates violations. And so those different things, and to the degree of it, the worst things seem to come out of really young, and I put the range from 0 to like 10 years old, or maybe 12, you know. The worst things come out of at the very young age, when all of a sudden a child at 1 year old or 2 years old or whatever is somehow violated, even though it's still bad at 5 or 6 and things like that. But when, yeah, I mean, and then when there's repetitive violations and things like that, you know, sometimes. See, you'll see people that are doing dysfunctional sexual things as little children. Okay, all right, and there's lots of people that do that. I mean, it's blah. I mean, because of the fact that they've had something done to them. It's always that there was something done with them, and it always starts at a certain level. And to be honest with you, I don't know what, if you take women, I don't know what percentage have had violations, but to me it's almost 100%. I mean, I can't say it's 100%, but it's awful close to that. You know, it's in the 90s somewhere. And if I take men are really high too. I mean, they might be 75%, or, you know, or just really, really high. You know, just, you know, maybe that's a little high figure for men, but it's way higher than you think it would be, you know.
It's hard to be like scientific, but
Yeah.
I'm shocked at it and I think, well, is that the normal across the board people, or is that because they're with us because they're so wounded because of that? But it's shocking to me, the percentage of people that have been violated. Shocking. It's more surprising to me when they haven't had one than if they have. And so I'm like, is it because those are the wounded ones? Or is that across the board, the population and the society that we're in? I don't know.
I think it's across the board. I think there's no question, because the people, you know, now it seems like I do sessions with all kinds of range of people. It doesn't matter, you know, pastors and ministry leaders and people that just, you know, just all ranges. Yeah, but I think that, but a good percentage of the people that we do ministry with are just seeking the Lord, and they're after the Lord. Okay, so then if that's the case, those people normally are probably going to be in safer places than people that aren't even seeking the Lord. You know what I mean? You know, and so yeah, I think that who we deal with is just like or better than what's out in the populace. You know, it's just that in the populace, people just harden their hearts so they don't feel.
That's a good point.
And so then they just learn to survive, and they just dysfunctionally hurt each other, you know, and not even realize they're doing it or not.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so what are we on now?
Now it's the sexual trauma thing that we want
Right.
to speak into, and
Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about doing a session, and as you're going through the session, going through the sexual trauma part, okay? All right? And to be honest with you, this is one of the last things that I turn over to people as they're seconding, all right? Because in my heart and mind, it's one of the most important things for people to get healed of, all right? Now, Kathy had brought up, if we go under this section where we're talking about sexual sin, okay, we already have practiced on going through and putting things in a basket, all right?
right.
All right, so that's done. Then the next thing, of course, you want to do is you want to ask if they've ever had abortions, okay?
Yeah, I wanted you to speak about abortions, and
And morning after pills, okay?
would you also speak into the client I had that wasn't sorrowful over that she would have done it again, and how you would handle that? I don't know if that's important to
Well,
know,
I
but-
think what we did in that case was we wholehearted our mind, all right?
Yeah.
If you remember, we wholehearted our mind, and then we just spoke into just brought God's love into it, and just brought healing to it. And when her mind was wholehearted, then she was opened up to forgive and repent and everything like that. And then it just worked its way through. But before that, in the mind, she was justifying herself by her thought pattern and trying to protect herself in her mind.
Yeah.
You know, so then healing came to that. But going back to the place of, if there's been abortions, we want to ask if there's been abortions or morning after pills, okay? And even morning after pills, I treat it as like a death of a baby, a death of a child, okay?
I was at Walmart today and I saw morning after pills. So
Right,
yeah.
right. It's just, yeah. It makes you weep, and it's just so hard. It's just, but
Shelf?
yeah.
They were locked up by the cigarettes, that area.
Thank you.
So anyhow, going back to that, the morning after pills or the abortion, we're just doing the same thing. We're forgiving and repenting, right? Who do I need to forgive? And then we're repenting, and then we're and a lot of times in that, there's all kinds of people, because there's people that drove them to the abortion. There's people that encouraged them. There's maybe pressure from mom or dad, or maybe not being able to speak to mom and dad and trust them enough to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. But all those different things, you just go through all the forgiveness like we would anyhow, all right? And you also have a place where that's a hard place to forgive. So you really want to ask forgiveness for not believing that God shed blood on the cross. Jesus shed blood on the cross, paid for my past, present, and future sins, and paid for this, and made me pure and clean and whole. And when you do that, you just place that under the blood of the cross and just speak the truth that Jesus shed blood on the cross, paid for everything, including this, and forgive me for feeling like I've had to pay for it for the rest of my life, that I have to somehow do something in order to pay for it. Father God, I am incapable of paying for this. It's impossible. I ask forgiveness for doing it, and I just give up. I just give up, and I just release it to you, because you've already paid for